Hey folks, before we get to the show, I'd like to give massive ups to Magic Spoon for sponsoring today's video. If you're like me, and I know I am, you enjoy cereals, but if you're tired of the crash one often gets from today's processed breakfast bowls, then Magic Spoon is for you. They have 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs. That's only 140 calories per serving, and they're also keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. What they are not low on, however, is taste. I don't know what magic they put into this stuff, but all the boxes I've tried have been awesome. But please, don't take my word for it. Take my word for it, there's going to be a flavor for you. In fact, peanut butter here, my personal favorite, is so good that I ate all of it before I could record this promo. God, may I present Blueberry, my new personal favorite. It's so good. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee, so if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So click the link in the description below to get some magic in your spoon, which can help you accomplish your health goals in the new year. I recommend the Variety Pack, which I've been ordering for myself for months. And if you want to do the same, use the code McMuscles at checkout for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/McMuscles. So thanks again to Magic Spoon, and now let's start the show. Welcome to another episode of What Happened, the show where if I've learned anything at all is that remakes and remasters aren't always the simple cut and dry deal most make them out to be. Now, don't get me wrong, there's incredible companies like Bluepoint, Night Dive, and Panic Button which have been doing amazing work for years, but for every MGS HD collection or Doom 64, there's a GTA Definitive Edition, Warcraft 3, or our subject today. XIII was a 2003 video game adaptation of the Belgium comic book, bande dessinée of the same name. It followed the clandestine adventures of an amnesia-riddled protagonist voiced by one of the greatest acting robots of all time, David Duchovny.
Jones, finally. I feel like I've spent 3 months inside a tin can.
XIII was developed by a team at Ubisoft Paris, and while not a blockbuster success, its unique visual style, mix of stealth and action, plus an intriguing plot was enough to make it a cult favorite during the 6th generation of consoles. But we're not talking about the original version, of course, but instead the absolutely woeful 2020 remaster/remake that wound up being one of the worst rated games of that year. Oh, the second worst, in fact.
I want them all to burn. You hear me? Even number 1.
And even more, in fact. I don't think this is even the first time I've mentioned this specific game on this show. Now, when did I... Play Magic, a studio currently working on a remaster of Ubisoft's spy-based FPS 13. Oh. So, what happened to the 13 remake?
Not interested, huh?
First things first, Ubisoft was not involved with this whole mess, which I guess is a good thing, as they are a bit busy with being extremely slow in trying to fix their work culture, as well as mitigating backlash from their NFT scams.
I'm fully committed to leading the change at Ubisoft.
Therefore, the companies we will be discussing, Microids and Play Magic, will be getting more than their fair share of our hot studio lights. Microids, another French publisher, had worked out a deal with Ubisoft in which the publishing rights to the original 13 game were transferred over to them. They just needed a studio that could bring it to modern machines. Play Magic, an independent Malta-based studio, was then chosen by Microids for the assignment, whereupon problems arose almost immediately.
I've fallen into my own trap.
Giuseppe Crugliano, the CEO of Play Magic, was, as we'll see, quite good at talking a big game.
I wanted to be distracted by other things.
In an extensive article over at fanbyte.com, link in the description, Crugliano is described as a hustler, sweet-talking various clients into handing him projects, even if his studio was ill-equipped to take them on. One such project was a VR version of the game Arctica 1, and the reason why Play Magic were so ill-equipped is because their workforce largely consisted of a lot of junior designers and interns. Now, what's worse than lacking an appropriate amount of staff? Well, that would be lacking an appropriate amount of staff with any experience in VR, but Giuseppe must have thought it was all gonna work out in the end.
I'll hide under some coats and hope that somehow everything will work out.
One former employee of PlayMagic stated it was always the same situation, working with inexperienced people. Those that would join with a little bit more experience were very frustrated because of the fact that he, Crugliano, would make unrealistic promises to publishers. We were just lying to clients. That was the reality. The studio struggled with this project for a while, crunching almost every day to make each milestone, which they often missed. For those uninitiated, usually when a developer misses a milestone, they don't get paid, as per most standard contracts. In the Fanbyte article, many former staff cited that these missed milestones were the result of Giuseppe failing to delegate tasks and micromanaging everything about the company, which would often slow things down. Way down. Missing these deadlines would then lead to low morale, because typically people like getting paid so that they could make their rent.
Rent?
We were working late at night every day, including weekends. I remember at one time we were working until 2 in the morning at the office trying to fix issues. You hear this a lot in game development. That wasn't the biggest issue though. The issue was Giuseppe was manipulating people into doing that every day without any real planning. The way he was tricking people into working more was by not paying them on time. Overall, the sentiment was that PlayMagic did not bother with pre-production or forward planning. They would just accept projects without really considering if they should accept those projects. Eventually, the client behind Arctica 1 canceled the contract, frustrated with its lack of progress, which resulted in even more lost wages. But don't worry, PlayMagic staffers, Uncle Giuseppe has the next game all lined up. XIII was the studio's highest profile release at that time, and apparently still is. To make up for the loss of Arctica, Giuseppe's plan was to get the cel-shaded sleeper hit out the door as quickly as possible to turn a profit.
Theirs is a monstrous plan.
Fortunately, there was a plan put in place to accomplish this. Make it a simple remaster, up the resolution, clean the textures, smooth out the frame rate, and then finally ship it. Giuseppe wanted this done in 3 months, and felt that by using Unreal-based plugins to update the graphics, it was a reasonable goal. The tried and true Grove Street method. What could go wrong? Let's find out.
Yourself a beer or something.
Unlike GTA, the problem wasn't the technical hurdles in updating old code with 2020 tech, but rather the fact that this approach wasn't going to work at all. The only direct source files Microids had available from the 2003 XIII release were PNGs of certain UI elements and the original dialogue recordings. Those have been preserved in pristine quality, and of course featured the voices of Fox Mulder, Adam West,
Nobody messes with Adam Wee,
and the real superstar, the queen of the Rough Riders herself, the always incredible Eve.
Tighten up your panties, we're going supersonic.
As for the original source code, well, it sadly had not been preserved, which was typical of the time as the game was nearly 20 years old. XIII had also been built on a super outdated version of Unreal 2, so there wasn't much that could apparently be done, or PlayMagic simply couldn't do it. So what did they do? Well, they remade the whole game from scratch, with a bunch of inexperienced interns.
Son, the day I recruited you, I didn't ask for your resume.
But the main issue wasn't even the lack of experience, but the lack of numbers. XIII always had the issue of too much work needing to be done, but not enough staff to actually do it. A lot of people left after the VR project, and we started XIII with just a small number of people. We did more pre-production that time with XIII, but it was pretty fast pre-production. At the start, Giuseppe wanted us to find ways to get the original assets from the game. We couldn't do it. The engine was too old, so the project transformed from a remaster to a remake, as the contract wasn't set in stone. So that 3-month estimate ballooned into a year or more, and with everything shifting to a remake made completely in Unity, well, that was one of the primary reasons why the finished game feels so off in just about every respect. Now, because this is what happened, I'm obligated to inform you that it's right about here, this critical juncture in 13's development, is when Giuseppe accepted another contract. This was the fabled Disney project I mentioned earlier, but former staff members have since clarified that the client wasn't Disney at all, but rather Aspyr Entertainment. Perhaps their involvement with recent KOTOR remasters and remakes had mixed them up with Disney somehow, or it simply was another case of
Purple Monkey Dishwasher.
Well, we'll show him, especially for that Purple Monkey Dishwasher remark.
Anyway, the game in question was a remaster of Stubbs the Zombie, and as to why Giuseppe thought taking this on was a good idea, I have no fucking clue. Anyway, to further make this mistake a reality, additional staff members on 13 were pulled away to work on Stubbs, which of course slowed down progress to the point where code must have started unwriting itself. Date check. It's now April 2019, and PlayMagic and Microids decided to release a teaser trailer to formally announce 13, with a release date set for later that year, which many staff members cited as a massive mistake. The game wasn't even close to being done, and every programmer or artist on it scoffed at the idea of it somehow getting done in 6 months.
That's not enough time!
But for whatever reason, at either Microids or Giuseppe's insistence, the November 2019 release date was set in stone until it wasn't. The game was officially delayed that August and was given a full 12-month delay to November 2020. Okay, now, with such a huge extension, surely things would get back on track.
Seeing me again doesn't do anything for you, does it?
So, it is an indisputable fact that the life cycles of many games were heavily disrupted once the pandemic began, and it wasn't any different over at PlayMagic, as the very few employees they did have had to convert to working from home, which only meant even slower progress. It wasn't long before Aspyr started getting concerned about Stubbs, and started getting into disagreements with PlayMagic about its lack of progress and overall quality. So try to act surprised when I now tell you that eventually the contract, much like its undead hero, fell apart. Aspyr cancelled it, nobody got paid, and the HD-ifying of Stubbs was then moved to an internal team within Aspyr who just did it themselves. With another project cancelled, even more people decided to pack it in and find work at other studios, as many took issue with Giuseppe's managerial style. It was always the typical conversation of, "We are a family here, I'm so proud of our family and my hustlers." There was a time where people were leaving and Giuseppe was like, "They're quitters, you guys are the real hustlers, I trust you." There was always like a dangling carrot in front of everyone, always, constantly. Like, after we reach this point, we will update salaries and everyone will be getting a raise. Or, after this, everything is going to be okay. Then we'd reach that point and the goalposts would be moved. As you can imagine, all these negative aspects resulted in the game that was eventually released, with all the blood, sweat, and sacrifices not amounting to much. The game's distinctive art style saw a lot of tweaks, ditching the timeless cel-shaded art style with something that many thought looked like a bottom-shelf Fortnite. The physics and melee weapons felt wrong, the stealth mechanics would often not work, and that's not to mention the oodles and oodles of bugs. I mean, look at this asshole right here try to play it. Yeah, sure. While the core game and art style had its own issues, bugs were in fact one of, if not the biggest problem. The whole thing just needed months more work. But with a whole year delay, why was the game so unpolished? Well, the reason for this is, as someone who did 7 years of QA, this really hurts to say, PlayMagic did not have their own QA team, so programmers were responsible for finding and fixing most bugs. That's how the company was run.
What the hell's going on here?
Thankfully, Microids at least realized that doubling the work for all programmers for no reason was indeed not a good idea, so in the last few months leading into release, they provided a few QA specialists to help squash bugs.
That's good.
However, several full-time staff members at PlayMagic brought up concerns that this simply wasn't enough, and given the state of the game at launch, Huh? Don't lose him! It simply wasn't enough.
That's bad.
There was almost zero marketing for 13 when it hit the Xbox One, PS4, PC, and the Switch. Oh wait, no, not the Switch. Despite being announced, that version apparently never came out, with no status update from Microids or PlayMagic. Even though it's now more than a year later, their website still claims it's coming soon, so get your pre-orders in.
That's bad.
Can I go now?
Anyway, critics absolutely savaged the other versions, and despite a number of patches meant to address the myriad of issues, the damage had already been done. Furthermore, to try and save face, Microids and PlayMagic even released a joint apology for the game's sorry state. First and foremost, we would like to offer our most sincere apologies for the game's technical issues. In its present state, 13 does not meet our quality standards, and we fully understand players' frustrations. The pandemic has impacted the game's production on many levels. We hoped we would be able to provide a day one patch fixing all the issues, but the development of this update is taking more time than expected. Finally, know that we are working on a detailed roadmap highlighting the upcoming free additions to the game content, like new levels, weapons, skins, and modes for the local multiplayer. We are aiming to please all the 13 fans and will work relentlessly to achieve our goal. Yeah, they weren't that relentless, because that last promise never even happened. More than a year later, 13 still hasn't gotten any free content or DLC. There were 4 major patches, and that's pretty much it. Things didn't get much better for PlayMagic following this disaster. In the Fanbyte article, Giuseppe claims that the company now runs much smoother and the future's looking bright somehow, although their website and all social media accounts have gone dark since 2020. This has to be one of the ugliest stories we've ever covered here on What Happened, and it sucks that a game with a small but passionate fanbase as 13 had to go through this whole mess. But what's far worse was all the stress incurred by the employees that were asked to complete a mission without the proper tools, experience, or leadership that they needed. If you know of any other mismanaged misfires, let me know in the comments below, over on my Twitter, or stealthily sneak into the Flophouse VIP Patreon and become a big boss and nominate what I'll take on in the future. See you next time, and thanks for watching!